On this week's episode of Comics Controllers, we talk about X-Men Days of Future Past and tell everybody what we thought about it. We also do a little bit of E3 predictions and talking about what we think is going to come up in the next week when that occurs. All that and more on this, episode 22, Days of Future Gaming. Welcome back to another episode of Comics and Controllers. As always, I'm Kyle, joined by my co-host Steven.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going pretty good today, Steven. So what's on the agenda?
Well, someone told me that you went and saw X-Men Days of Future Past.
I did.
And what were your thoughts on the film?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really great. It made me extremely happy.
It made you happy, huh? Like,
it did.
Could you and I assume there is going to be some spoilers here, so fair warning. Yeah. But could you expand a bit on what in this movie made you happy?
So, there's a lot of little things that I liked about it. I liked the Major Quicksilver scene. I thought that was pretty interesting, and it's
the music choice in that made that scene.
It did, and I like that because I think a lot of times you don't really get to see speedsters in movies or TV shows, but we've got a potential to see a lot of them coming up. We've got the Flash TV show,
right?
We've got Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Future Past, and then we've got Quicksilver in the Avengers movie.
Right, and I will say that with seeing this scene now, I think if I was a producer on the Flash TV show, which I know they've already started filming and everything, I would be thinking, how can we step our game up to exceed this? How can we do something cooler than what just happened? And I don't know if they can, but that's what I'd be thinking right now.
Yeah, and I really feel that more of what Quicksilver did in the movie was more along the lines of what Flash does than what Quicksilver does. Because, I mean, Quicksilver runs fast. Yes. He moves quickly. But this was more of a character who is thinking on, like, he's almost like living outside of time. He moves so fast, which is more of what the Flash does with the Speed Force. You know, he could do whatever he needs to as long as it involves being quick.
And as I was telling someone the other day, depending on who's writing it, because I know Peter David did this a little bit with Quicksilver in, I believe, X Factor. Sometimes Quicksilver can move so fast that he is actually causing time around him to slow to a point, which, again, with the way powers work, that depends on who's writing it and how it's done. But I think this was a really good version of that type of Quicksilver, and it, worked.
Yeah, and I liked him. One of the big problems I had with it was I was like, you've got this character who's super powerful, basically, and is a complete badass. Why isn't he in more of the movie?
Why did they tell him to take the car back and go? Because I was thinking, like, hey guys, y'all have a lot to do. Somebody with this power, and maybe that's what they were thinking, like, oh, well, if we have Quicksilver show up with them at this event, he would just speed through this and there wouldn't be as big of a conflict, because sometimes you have to think that way with people with certain powers. You're like, if this person's there, if their power is not canceled in some way, what's stopping them? Does that leave a plot hole where it's like, well, what stopped them from just blah,
The only context I can think of is that he was a kid and they didn't want to keep using him to do this stuff when they knew how dangerous it could be, even though they did just use him to break into the Pentagon. But hey, whatever.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to say, depending on which version of Xavier you read, sometimes he is like that. He's like, man, I'm making all these kids do shit that could get them killed or, whatever. But, did you see the two girls that he was sitting with in the one scene? He's watching TV, and I think it's after. It's towards
it was
the end
one
of the
girl.
movie.
I know the one you're talking about. It was one little girl.
No.
Yeah.
There's one girl in his lap. There's one girl behind him on the couch.
I didn't even realize there's one behind him.
So a lot of people think that one is Polaris and one is Scarlet Witch.
Oh, well, that's plausible.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I don't expect to see that character again in any other X-Men movies, though, truthfully. For some reason, I just feel like he was a one-off.
Probably not. I would imagine. I don't know. Maybe if people think he was really successful, because one of the things about now that just it. Days of Future Past is a giant time plot, and as with all time plots, you can never say what will or will not happen after it because they've changed time, so we don't know exactly what's happened. And one of the things that I was explaining is now that they have changed time, pretty much any mutant is back on the table because you could write it in that because of X time thing.
They brought back all the dead ones in the very end of it,
right?
Because the universe was rewritten. I like that side of it because I didn't think about that. I just figured it'd be like. I figure what they're going to basically say happened was all the other X-Men movies were things that happened, and then after that is when the stuff got bad. And so if they undid that, then it wouldn't be the stuff, the future we saw wouldn't occur. I didn't think they were going to go back and say, no, that changing that one event changed the entire X-Men universe that we've seen up to this point.
Right. Well, it really, in my opinion, it looked like all it did was rewrite X-Men 3, The Last Stand.
No, it'd have to rewrite X-Men 2.
Why?
Because Jean Grey didn't come back crazy and kill everybody. Because she died at the end of that. And remember, then she killed Cyclops at the beginning of the third one. It would have had to have rewritten that whole thing, too.
I don't know. That's a good point. I mean, I could see maybe because of the changes, maybe they were just able to save her. I don't know. That's a good point. But, yeah, the third one is the one where they kill Jean Grey and they kill Cyclops. And a bunch of other mutants die that are not quite as named on that one. But, that to me, it just made it look like the third one didn't happen. And I think that was one of my actual biggest problems with the movie was their attempt to tie it into the third movie, because that's my least favorite of all of them. And there's so much stuff that happens, like with Xavier going into the body of his brother, wasn't it, at the end, in the after credits scene?
I don't know if they said who it was. He was just in a body.
And then Magneto supposedly loses his powers at the end, but as I've pointed out to several people, the way it makes it seem at the end looks like they're slowly coming back. So that doesn't bother me as much. The biggest thing was that they never actually, in my opinion, they never explained how Xavier got his body back after, unless his brother's body looks exactly like him. But
they also never explained why Kitty Pryde can send people back in time now.
Here's my thing about that. It's a comic book movie.
That's my thought too.
I don't care that Kitty Pryde can send back people back in time. I wanted one line in the movie universe, and all they had to say was have Professor X say, like, well, I've been working with Kitty on her powers, and we've discovered that her phasing doesn't just extend to material objects, but can extend through time and space. One line like that, and I would have been fine.
In the comics, she's traveled through time before because of her powers. It's not like that's never happened. I mean, she went back and fought Nazis at one point.
Well, yeah. Now, my understanding is in the original Days of Future Past, she doesn't herself travel back on time, but she's pulled through time because of her powers.
Rachel Summers sends her back because Wolverine gets obliterated in like the first couple pages by a Sentinel, and so Rachel Summers, using her telepathy, sends Kitty Pryde back in time through her own body since she was alive when that was going on.
Yeah,
but see, that was part of the argument of why they didn't do that in this movie, is because the only character that, other than Xavier and Magneto, that's around in both is Wolverine.
Right.
And it made, I mean, I didn't have a problem with them changing it. And I know a lot of people just hate on Wolverine because, he's in everything. He's in everything because the non-comic book fans love him, and so they put him in all that stuff. Yeah. And even comic book fans love him. If you're one of the ones who doesn't, I'm sorry. Get over it. He's loved by enough people that he's going to be in everything.
Well, here's my thing. I honestly don't mind Hugh Jackman. If the actor who played Wolverine sucked, I would be like, God, get him off the screen. But I find Hugh Jackman very entertaining. I love that scene when he first wakes up, and they're like, were you sleeping with her? And it's like, no. Well, I have a lot, but not right now.
Yeah.
I was cracking up. But most of the continuity problems and like some of the errors I had with the movie either came from trying to wrap it back around to the third movie, or with just some stuff that overcomplicated a lot of the plot and everything.
So here's my thing with all the people complaining about continuity issues. Why do you have to complain so much about it when it's in a movie, but the moment it happens in a comic book, which comic books are riddled with continuity problems.
Yeah.
Hell, we've got people who have been 18 for 40 years. It's like, why is it okay then?
Yeah.
Get over it. It's a comic book movie. If you want it to be more like a comic book, it should be full of continuity problems and make no sense half the time.
And I'm one of the people who complains when it happens in a comic book, and I try to give movies a lot more leeway. But as I said, there's some things that happen just within the movie universe of the X-Men that, to me, come up as, continuity issues. However, I will also say that I think for the fact that this has gone through two different directors, because Singer didn't direct First Class. It was, I can't think of the guy's name, to be honest, but it was a different guy who directed First Class. Mm-hmm. And I liked his version of First Class. And I have nothing against Days of Future Past as far as Singer directing it, but I would have actually liked to seen what that guy did had he been given the next movie, because I think that would have been interesting, because First Class to me is still my favorite of all of the movies that they've done. I think it's a little bit better paced than Days of Future Past, but Days of Future Past would be up there. I think it would go X-Men First Class, X2, and then Days of Future Past for me.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot. I thought it was really great. I mean, I know a lot of people are trashing it and stuff like that, and I think it comes back to, like, you have to realize that if they made these movies the way that all the comic book fans want to see it, these movies wouldn't make any money. They have to make these movies to a general populace. In fact, if they probably made comics more situated to the general populace to be able to pick it up, comic books would probably actually make more money, but they don't. And that's because they're keeping it where the fans are happy with it. And that's also why younger audiences aren't picking up on comics, because it's not doing what they want them to do. More younger audiences are reading more like manga or web comics and stuff like that. Like when I was at this past weekend, I went to a convention in Atlanta called MomoCon, and it's an anime convention. Most people who are younger, and now I will say it's an anime convention, so you're not going to see a lot of superhero stuff, but there are people who still dress as superheroes. Most of those people dressed as superheroes were older people. They were people who were in their late 20s or onward. If they were dressed as a superhero when they were young, it's probably one of the superheroes that has been in a movie recently. Yeah. But all the really young people are dressed as characters from manga or anime or this web series called Homestuck, which Homestuck it started off literally as a web comic, and now it's like its multimedia products make more money than comics but do. That's how huge it's gotten. And most people in our age group have no clue what it even is.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of it.
If you go to any anime convention, you will see a bunch of people in gray face paint with yellow and orange horns. That's from Homestuck. I had to look it up. I'd heard of it just because of going to these conventions, but I looked it up afterwards and I saw what it was, and I was like, that doesn't interest me because I'm not a young lesbian, but that's cool.
You know what? I'm sorry. Now that you put it that way, I actually do remember somebody talking about this, because I remember them talking about, for some reason, it attracts young lesbians.
It does. It's a lot of young lesbians and young kids. And they dress like it. It's cool, whatever. It's cool that they're into something, that they can have a place to go do it, sure. But it just shows that it's a different. There's a different type of thing that's reaching to them than comics. And I don't know how long the actual comic books themselves are going to continue, because I think a lot of their base is bleeding off, getting older, not buying or dying. So I'm always curious about that. Like, how long are some of these comics going to keep going? And is it mostly the movies that are keeping them, especially for Marvel, keeping them going?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely could see another kind of drop-off. Comics is definitely one of those fields that goes through stages, and it has some pretty bad stages. We've seen it before. It'll happen again. I'm hoping that, it doesn't mean the end of comics as we know them, but they probably do need to change somewhat to keep up more with the times.
Yeah, they need to try to market better, because, and I've said this before, I'm not sure if I've said it here, but I know I've said it on another podcast, but I go and buy a comic, it's 22 pages, it's $3, $3.50 maybe even $4 depending on the company. I get 22 pages, one story. I can go buy like a manga and get like $5 and get 100, 200 pages and get a lot of story. It's not really cost efficient for a child. It's really an older person's hobby at this point, because it's so expensive. And the same thing happened with baseball cards. Baseball cards were what kids used to collect. Like when my dad was a kid, he collected it. When I was a kid, I collected them. As I got older, though, and I stopped, and then some reason I started doing it again, I was like, these cards are like $5 a pack for 5 cards. That's absurd. How do kids do this? And I realized as I'm looking around, kids aren't buying these. It's people who are holding on to a hobby from their youth. And so it's like, I'm sure baseball cards are like not even really a thing anymore.
Yeah, and comics prices, something we've discussed on here, and I've had lengthy discussions with about. That's eventually going to have to change. There's eventually going to be a kind of a paradigm shift in the world of comics where the comics pricing is going to have to undergo some sort of change for them to keep it going, and it will probably be much later in our lifetimes for that to happen. But
I think it won't be until it's almost completely. You can get every brand new comic digitally.
Yeah,
and then it'll be a digital cheap price, and it'll make it more worth it.
I'll put it this way: like I get a lot of comics. Some I get for review purposes. Some I get through work. It depends, but the comics that I've actually bought and spent money on lately have been through Comixology and a few rare ones that I just really wanted to have. But, you know, Comixology every weekend is putting up some brand new 99-cent sale. And, you know, it's so easy to go, okay, well, the first 10 issues of this series are 99 cents. I'm going to buy those. And that'll either get you hooked on it or you'll realize you don't like the series. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, back to X-Men, just kind of to tie it up. I really enjoy this movie. But with that said, the X-Men as a whole are probably my favorite comic book group. Now, and I don't like all of them. There's a lot of bad ones. A lot of bad characters in there. A lot of really bad stories. But some of the best stories I remember ever reading came from the X-Men. And some of the best characters, or my favorite characters, come from the X-Men too. And so to see a movie and to see that franchise still doing fairly well, because it did have a bumpy stretch there with X3 and Wolverine Origins, but to see them come out with, like, in the last several years, a lot better movies, it's made me happy. And I know some of the articles I've seen on it have just been ridiculous. It's like people hating to hate, talking about like how, well, we've seen 2 incarnations of Spider-Man and the Hulk, and Batman's finished its thing, and we're still pulling back on the same X-Men stuff. Oh my God, you people are the same ones who complain when they relaunched all those things. Shut your mouth. Yeah. Just deal with it.
No, I didn't agree with that point because I actually know what you're talking about. And my thing is, you know, when you relaunch series like that, you risk having to suffer through another origin story. And, you know, I'd rather them try to continue the series and do something new with it. One of my biggest complaints is I do kind of agree that after they do, the big end credit scene, which I totally was loved and made me excited for it, was Apocalypse, and because we know the next movie is X-Men Apocalypse. But after that, where they go after X-Men Apocalypse, I really think is going to be, well, we've done kind of all of the good mutant versus human storylines. They're going to have to start looking at some of the alien stuff and some of the space stuff. Now, I have faith in them that they can probably take some of that material and bring it down a little bit, or, you know, revamp it, change it a little bit. But really, once we get through with Apocalypse, that's where a lot of the cool X-Men storylines come in, is where they started going to the Shi'ar Empire and where they started, you know, dealing with some of these different alien species and stuff like that.
I think the best way of looking at X-Men stories is it goes like this. It's either one, it's X-Men's plight, it's mutants' plight against humanity and how Magneto keeps screwing it up.
Yeah. 2,
it's something of space in the Shi'ar. Or 3, it's something magical and they're completely out of their norm for it, but they got to deal with it anyways. Those are what your typical X-Men type of plots are. Yeah. And there's some that kind of go a little way away from that, or they tie 2 of them together, or they're a little bit, you know, deeper into one than the other. But that's what all of their plots kind of come back to over the years if you look at them. You can classify all of them into at least one of those categories in some way.
The other option there is that they introduce a new form of human evolution. Like they've had the Neo and the, you know, the other like the midgets that had the mutant powers and all that. You know, there's always this new form of, well, mutants were this form of evolution, but now here's, you know, blah. Oh, those are crazy. But did you catch the cameo by Chris Claremont and Len Wein?
No, I didn't catch it because I didn't know what they looked like.
Claremont was one of the people that Mystique turned into, and I think Len Wein was just in the crowd, but they are the people who did the original Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
There were some other cameos too, like just some mutants that, you know, like, oh, did you notice this guy in the background? And I was shocked to see that the one guy in the military base was actually supposed to be Spike. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, I think there's a lot of little nods in there, which is cool. And I think kind of what this is setting up is the feel I got from this is the same kind of feel I got from J.J. Abrams when he did the Star Trek relaunch. He wanted to pull something from the original that kind of tied it back to the new one, but kept people still where they felt it was okay. Mm-hmm. So he did Days of Future Past. He set this all up to be okay, and now he can do everything with the First Class group in that kind of time period, and it will be okay because he's kind of set up that, yeah, this is its own kind of universe now because of the events of that series that tied it to the other universe that we dealt with. And we don't necessarily have to try to get all those actors back again to do that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I'm just really hoping for Cable. I'm not going to lie. I'm hoping for Cable. Also, I heard some people, as far as the acting, I thought the acting in the movie was great.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it, but I know a lot of people were saying that, like, Peter Dinklage and Jennifer Lawrence look bored.
Okay. Peter Dinklage I can almost see, because he didn't have a lot to do. I was expecting him to have a little bit more to do. I thought he did fine with what they gave him. There's a couple of scenes where he comes across as, even though he's not doing much, I'm like, God, I hate this guy. You're supposed to. But Jennifer Lawrence I thought was great as Mystique.
Once again, I think it's just people who wanted to hate on it, and they just hated on everything. It didn't matter what it was.
It was kind of cool in her area because usually Wolverine does feel like he's kind of a screen hog, not because of Hugh Jackman, but because the director, like you said, thinks, okay, this is what's going to put butts in seats. And in this one, it really felt like this was almost as much Mystique's time to shine as it was Wolverine's. My only complaint about that was her being Stryker at the end. I did not understand what they were trying to insinuate or set up with her being young Stryker at the end. I thought that was ridiculous, and just like making JFK out to be a mutant later on to make Magneto not as much of a hated character, I was like, you overcomplicated something that could have been really cool. All we needed to see was Stryker getting Wolverine, and that sets into motion why he has metal claws, all of Weapon X. That means X2 could still happen, so I don't know. I thought that was a little overcomplication. That's what I'm saying. Like, there was nothing in the plot that I was like, this is a giant gaping hole. Well, the few gaping holes, like I said, were from X-Men Third Class. But everything was just like, I think you guys overcomplicated the story, and that's part of the reason why I think the flow didn't work quite as well.
Yeah. I mean, there were those little things like that. I was kind of like, okay, I don't really see the importance that had, but fair enough. But, yeah, I mean, overall, I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I don't think it was my favorite of the X-Men movies, but it wasn't my worst by far. It was probably in the top 2.
First Class is still my favorite. And the last thing I'll point out, there were some people that were complaining they didn't hint towards Magneto or Wolverine knowing that Quicksilver was Magneto's son, because obviously in the future, I guess they're assuming they would have known that. But my thing is, there's no definite thing that they do know that. And secondly, I think their hint to that in the actual movie was the mailbox saying Maximoff, obviously.
Oh, well, he even makes a comment like, oh, you can control metal? My mom used to know me could do that.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So, there's that hint.
I forgot about that, actually. You're right. But I like you said, he may be a one-show, this may be the only movie we see that character in, so
that's kind of what I feel.
Yeah, so I don't think they needed to lay too much of a groundwork for that unless they really were planning on using him later on.
I feel it was a lot more head nods than anything else.
Which is fine. I'm okay with that. You don't need to overdo it to me. Oh, and the action was great in this one. I can't tell you much about the CGI because visually it looked fine to me, but I know I'm not the best at discerning good or bad CGI. But the action scenes, Bryan Singer used to not be very well liked for his action scenes, but they were fine in this. Yeah.
But so I think that's kind of going to conclude our discussion on this summer's movies of comic book origin and stuff like that, because they all kind of happen in a block. There is like one more or two more, I think.
There's Guardians of the Galaxy coming out in August.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that one when it happens, but it's several months away now. But we got a question. We normally do questions at the end, but I want to do this question because it still kind of ties into this. And it's about Batman Superman, because there's been a lot of news about it lately. So Ulysses emailed us, and I like to say this too. I knew Ulysses was going to email us about this because he tweeted something about how irate he was, and I was like, I expect an email from him on the subject. And sure enough, like within the day, I got the email. So he says, "Hey there, guys, it's Ulysses again. Just wanted to give you guys my opinion on this whole Man of Steel sequel situation. I have a huge issue with this movie now, and all of them can boil down to the title of the movie, and it's not with the Dawn of Justice part. I could care less about that part, frankly. My biggest issue is with Batman versus Superman. Okay, I really can't stand that Batman got top billing in the Superman sequel. It's frustrating enough as a Superman fan to see that they are cramming all these heroes in his sequel, but to have one of them top him in his own movie angers me. I may be in the minority in this, but I hate that they have versus in the title. I don't want this to be a versus movie because all we'll see is Batman getting the upper hand on Superman multiple times because he's effing Batman. I'm not here to argue who's better, Superman or Batman. I'm just here to argue that they shouldn't be diminishing the main character's role in his own movie. I see this as a huge sign of disrespect towards Superman. I know you guys have said that you guys aren't the biggest Superman fans, but I would like to hear your opinions on this subject. Thanks, guys. Keep up the great work." So, this is, and I don't know if this is why they do it, but this is something that the brain does a lot of times if you don't think about it. If you think about people in pairs, a lot of times your brain will automatically alphabetize those people. Yeah. Like if you know a couple, if you know a couple, you refer to them as, Becky Bryan, okay, BEBR. Your brain automatically does it. Or, it's just something that you do. Now, is that what's happened here? I doubt it. It's probably more of them trying to play off of the Batman's made more money and they know they can draw more people in.
I would just like to say, as an English major, I always do that. If I have two people, I alphabetize their names. Unless there's like an obvious, this character is more popular, so
it's a subconscious thing for a lot of people, especially when it comes to a pair. I think you just say it in alphabetical order,
right?
But I see where you're coming from, even though I don't like Superman. I think it's stupid that you're throwing all these other heroes in, and you're actually putting another hero's name in front of him in his own sequel.
Well, let's be honest. First of all, that is a horrible title. The Dawn of Justice part sounds like it's from a 90s comic. You could actually get away with using that title in a comic.
It sounds like it's from a DC comic now. I mean,
Does
Dad
it really?
Comics. Yeah, it's Dad Comics. It's the kind of stuff they have.
Okay. But, no, I don't... Maybe it's just me, but I agree that the verses also in the title just makes it... It makes the movie sound cheesier than it ever should be. By putting the verses in the title. And I am not a big Superman fan. We both aren't. However, I agree that it kind of sucks that Man of Steel wasn't bad, and you're going to now pretty much take away Superman's sequel. He really should have had a sequel, in my opinion, just a straight-up sequel. And it's obviously, set up for the Justice League movie. I don't know. This movie looks like it's going to have so many problems anyway.
I don't see this movie being successful because of it's had so much bad press before it's even really gotten into full-on recording.
Yeah.
And people are just already hammering on it for everything. I mean, and some of it, it's not like your typical, this is so stupid, neckbeard type of argument. This is some of this is a legit argument and discussion. Like this one. This is, why is this other character being named before this guy in his own sequel? It doesn't make any sense. Other than the fact that it's going to make more money because of that, probably.
Why do you hate the neckbeards so much?
I mean, they're pretty much the worst thing in society.
Okay. But I agree. They're cramming all these people in, and I can't even say anymore. At first, I was like, man, this looks like it's just a giant cash in to have a big opening weekend, and then probably a movie that's going to fail. And I discussed this in one of the videos I did not too long ago, that to me, DC has some potential right now because all the Marvel movies, although they're really good for most of the part, to me they go together. They're part of the reason the Marvel movies are so good is because one keeps leading into the other and stuff like that. And DC really had a chance to kind of stand out and make some movies that 10 years from now I think would actually stand better as alone movies, just single movies. And I think they're kind of messing that up. They're squandering a lot of what they could be doing.
I think a lot of what DC wants to do too is they've seen how successful Marvel's been with the Avengers thing. This giant, this whole giant situation with all that going on, and they're like, well, we need to do that. We need to get all these movies in on it. But their Batman one just tied up. And I think they're probably figuring it's too early to relaunch Batman. So, especially...
I'm glad they thought that, yes.
I agree, because that series is too good. I mean, they have to wait a while to relaunch Batman. So rather than relaunch it, they're like, we'll just do a whole new Batman, but we'll put him in the Superman movie.
What did you think of the photo reveal of Batman?
I was like, he looked like he was sad. Like, why?
He did look like sad Batman. However, that's how I like my Batman. Batman should be brooding. Batman should be... Actually, he should always look pissed off.
I like the picture of Bill Murray's head photoshopped in on it better, because I'd rather see Bill Murray play Batman than...
I cannot say how...
what's his face?
I cannot say how Ben Affleck will do as Batman. However, I would say that he looks the part in that photo.
Yeah, I don't really know.
So a lot of people could really pull that off if you're muscular enough and can brood correctly.
Yeah, I think the movie's just a cluster mess up.
I think you should tell Ulysses not to go see the movie.
Oh, I wouldn't. I'm not going to see this movie in the theater. I refuse to. See, here's another problem I think too with this is that Marvel built up its movies before Disney bought them. And now Disney's probably like, you guys have got this down. We don't really need to jump in your face. You've got a really good system going for us, so we're going to let you keep on without interfering. However, DC, owned by Time Warner's probably all up in DC stuff constantly with this. Like, that's not going to make any money. You need to put Batman and Wonder Woman and everybody in this movie. Like, but it's not that. It's a Superman movie. It's not Justice League. You need to set up a Justice League movie like they did. If you look at how Marvel set up those movies, you might have a character from one of the other ones in there for maybe 5 minutes, if even that. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: when Marvel Studios was working on the Avengers movie, they were already halfway through. I think they had just started filming, or they were going to start filming soon when Disney bought them. So Disney didn't touch Avengers much except for advertising and some marketing stuff, right? And that's considered Marvel's greatest accomplishment so far as Avengers. So Marvel really did the majority of that on their own without Disney's help and without them, dipping in. The biggest thing that people were worried about was Disney was going to interfere with their actual comic book side, which Disney has pretty much kept them out of, or kept their nose out of. And then Disney really, on a lot of the newer Marvel movies, from what I've been hearing, now that they've had some time with them, they've been helping more in the planning. But once it actually comes to the movies and stuff like that, they're kind of, like, okay, well, if you guys think this is, working, go for it. The biggest issue right now is the issue with Ant-Man, with Edgar Wright leaving the project, and people are wondering how much of that was Marvel's side and how much of it was Disney's side. But other than that, it seems that, like you said, Disney's kind of kept their fingers out of it too much.
Yeah, I don't know about the Ant-Man thing. That kind of happened over the weekend when I was incommunicado. If you've never been to a convention, it's really its own world for like however long you're there. Like, you lose context. Like, I didn't know anything had gone on in the world outside of the convention for 2 or 3 days. When I come out, it's like I'm coming out of like some kind of biosphere, and you have to inform me of what's occurred in the world. So I just saw that, and I'm like, okay, I don't really know the full thing. I know it seems like Josh Whedon kind of supports Wright on it, but that's all he said. And then I know that there's another director for a Marvel movie. James Gunn. James Gunn, he said it's a weird situation because like it's like Marvel and Wright are both my friends, and it's like you're in the middle of a bad breakup, and you want to still be friends with both of them, but you just stay out of it because it's not your business.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that, but I agree with that last part.
I do too.
These other directors, unless Marvel did something to really screw him over, which I don't think they did.
I don't think so. I think it was just a big... I think it was a big, like, we don't agree with the way you're doing this. And he's like, well, this is the way I'm going to do it. And I think it kind of came down to, well, we need to just separate this. This relationship needs to end.
Which, I hate to say this, but if this was going to happen to any of the Marvel franchises, I'm glad this one I wasn't completely invested in. I mean, I'll go see an Ant-Man movie, but I'm not a huge Ant-Man fan.
Well, I don't think they're using the Hank Pym Ant-Man, so I'm okay with it.
No, it's...
the Scott Lang, isn't it?
Scott Lang. Now, Hank Pym Ant-Man will be in the movie because he's being played by Douglas. Can't think of his first name. Anyway, throat cancer, dude.
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Well, I just wanted to, end this whole kind of discussion with saying that I agree with you, Ulysses. I think that they have screwed up. I think that movie's going to be a train wreck, and I don't think we'll see any more DC movies that are going to be like that for a while, because it's going to be such a train wreck that it's just not going to pay off. Unless they can get their stuff together, which I don't see it happening. I don't think it's going to be, like, terrible, but I think it's just going to be not mediocre. It's not going to be Avengers money. Yeah. I doubt it would even make a quarter of what the Avengers made.
I will agree with you, Ulysses, also, that is the worst title I've ever heard.
And I just wanted to say one last thing, going back to filleting Marvel again. Did you see they announced who's going to play Daredevil in the Netflix series?
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, so for those who don't know, it's going to be an actor named Charlie Cox. He's not really famous. He's a British actor, but he was in Boardwalk Empire, and he played the Irish mafia guy who kind of came to the main character, played by Steve Buscemi, and started to work for him. He's a really good actor. So that when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I think he'll be really good.
I was cool with that decision.
I think he'll be amazing at that. So just wanted to conclude our kind of discussion on non-comic book stuff. Yeah. So now, Steven,
we talk about E3.
E3. Yeah. So it's right around the corner.
Yep, it's coming up, and I believe June the 10th is when it starts, right?
Indeed. So this is probably just based on when this is coming out and how lazy I can be about getting this edited. This will probably be the podcast that comes before E3, and then we'll do a wrap-up of E3 afterwards. So it probably won't be a lot of comic book stuff, but just a lot of video game news, because we expect there to be a ton of it.
I'm gonna go through some stuff, Kyle, and I figure we'll give our back and forth on it, and I'll just go ahead and I'm gonna knock out Xbox, because I have a feeling that this particular Xbox category is not going to interest you at all. All right, so first off, Halo 5, I assure you is going to get something. If it's gameplay, I'd be shocked, but it's going to get something.
It's been officially announced, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
There's just nothing else on it.
Yeah, because the date is 2015, so... Yeah.
There'll probably be a trailer or cinematic for it.
There's going to be a longer trailer, or maybe some very brief gameplay. I doubt it. What actually has me more excited as a Halo fan is that supposedly they're going to announce the remasters for Halo 2 and 3 and an updated version or remaster of Halo 4. I don't really care as much about the Halo 4 one because it's the newest one and I've played it recently, but I would love to go revisit Halo 2 and 3, and I would love a remastered new edition. These mostly
Did they already remaster one?
Yes, yeah. Okay. Halo 1 has had a remaster, and it was great. They did a great job with it. It was just as fun. They added some extra little things that made it worth spending the extra money on. I enjoyed it.
I'll say this. I bet they will announce a remaster of 2, but I wouldn't get your hopes up for 2, 3, and 4, because you have to think of it from a perspective of money. If they release all those at once, they're not as likely going to make as much money, but if they release them one a year, that can make people think they're doing Halo stuff every year, even if they're not. So they'll probably get an announcement of 2.
Yeah, and I'll be fine with that. As long as Halo 2 Remastered is announced, I'm good.
1 and 2 are the ones I played, and I liked the single player. Yeah. I liked the multiplayer in 1 was amazing, but...
That's true. Yes, that's true. A lot of people didn't like the way 2 was split up, where you played the 2 different characters, but I actually thought from a storytelling point of view, Halo 2 has one of the best perspectives, and I would love to replay that, and I would love for them, Halo 5 supposedly has 2 main characters from the poster that we've seen. You have the Master Chief and whoever is on the Reflection side, and I would love if they tried to do something like that again, but I'm afraid a lot of people would be worried.
Yeah. So I'd expect like probably a long cinematic for Halo 5, maybe a little bit of gameplay, probably nothing exceptional, and then an announcement of remastered of Halo 2.
Yeah.
All right, so what next?
Call of Duty Advanced Warfare.
Yeah, they'll announce a Call of Duty every year because idiots keep buying it. Next.
Yeah. Well, wait. I just want to point out.
Next.
I think they would actually make more money off of this if they just called it Call of Duty House of Cards. I think they would
that's
make
the one
money.
with Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
Well, I do say, my dear boy, we need to discuss the situation that is at hand more thoroughly.
I've only seen one episode of House of Cards, so I can't comment on it. Yeah, it seems great. I'm behind, but I think a lot of people will pop for this one. You and I really don't care, so whatever.
I haven't played one of those I heard there's a YouTuber I follow. Not a lot of people follow him. His name's Avidia Zen. He's been around for a very long time. One of the probably first Let's Players, but
right.
He's an old school shooter guy. Like he still plays Quake Live, which that's
nice.
Old.
Yeah.
But he made a great comment. He's kind of done with Call of Duties and Battlefields because what happens is if one's good and you finally get into it, the moment a new one comes out, they murder the multiplayer for the old one, and so it's like, this game's still good. Why'd you do this? I can't play it anymore. And so, I agree with them. I don't want to play these because of that.
Call of Duty amazes me that their older games don't drop in value more, because you would think a lot of these companies, usually, okay, well, we have the new version of this game come out, drop the old one in price so the people who didn't play it will want to go pick it up. But Call of Duty, half of your game is now useless because the multiplayer, everyone's switched to the new one. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm still having to sit here and pay $35 or $40 for Black Ops 2, which is a great game. I loved Black Ops 2, but it wasn't worth $35, $40.
No.
So the last thing that Xbox is doing is supposedly they've got the rights to a couple of new third-party IPs. Whether these will be exclusives or not, we have no clue. But they're going to show some more games off. I haven't read anything about what they're going to show off with the actual media side, except for probably more about the Halo TV show.
Probably more than anybody really cares about at E3. I mean, if it's anything like last year, if they showed 3 games, they're already shown more than they did. So
right.
All right. So what's after Xbox?
Well, PlayStation. PlayStation's been pretty quiet this year. Usually they're pretty. They say what they're going to do, but I think part of that is that most of the games that they're showing off aren't huge system sellers. The Order 1886 will probably get some gameplay. There's a few other games that have lined up that they're probably going to show. But the 2 big things that I think they're going to show off, one is Project Morpheus, which is their VR headset. I think. Yeah. I'm not going to say a working demo. I'm saying they're probably going to show some video packages for it, and they're going to talk about it.
I disagree. I think we're going to get a demo.
You really think
they're further? I think
they're
we're further along in the process on that than they've shown up to now, because they wanted to hold back on something for E3. What I see is I don't think they're going to have a lot of huge game stuff. They'll have a lot of games because that's Sony's thing. Is they're going to show us a lot of games. Yeah. But it's not going to be like, oh my God, this is crazy. Look at all this. It's going to be like, here's a bunch of games. Then here's Project Morpheus. And we'll probably see more on the media side from them this year.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I hope you're right that they're further along and maybe they can really show us a demo for Project Morpheus. And as far as their games, like I said, just none of the games that I saw that they were going to show were huge system sellers like Halo or something like that.
Yep.
Like they're showing off Destiny. Well, Destiny's going to be on all the consoles, so it's not as big of a deal. The other thing that I am very interested in that PlayStation will be showing off is the PlayStation Now streaming. The beta keys are out. People are testing it. I'm thinking we're going to get an idea of more of the games that are going to be on there and how the service is going to work. Hopefully they'll finally tell us a price point.
So, for those of us who don't know, what's the 2-sentence explanation?
Okay, PlayStation Now is like Netflix, but for streaming PS1 and PS2 games.
Awesome. I can handle that.
And I would love it, especially if it works the way that they have been hinting at it working. So far, the price point a lot of people think is going to be somewhere between $4.99 and $7.99 a month, which, depending on how many games, I think that price will be worth it. The streaming service, they're testing it now, so hopefully you won't have any problems with, I was halfway through Final Fantasy VII, and now it's just laggy as hell. Mm-hmm. And I think if they I know they're going to have some problems getting licenses for all the games that you're going to want. However, I think if they're smart about it, they get a good grouping, because they can probably buy licensing from some of these companies like, we got all the Final Fantasies, or we got all of this. And some of them they're not going to have to pay for. Some of them they have digital rights to already. So it's going to have a good base of games, but before I pay for the service, I do want to know how many games are going to be available.
I agree. And it's games that you want to play.
Right.
All right, so that's Sony.
Yeah. Nintendo is up next. And for those of you who don't know, Nintendo will not be having a full conference or a full...
they don't have a keynote. They are at E3 this year, but they don't have a keynote. They're going to do a Nintendo Direct thing, which is what they've done the last year.
Yeah. And it was fine.
I'm not going to lie. I like it.
Yeah, I liked it. It was very interesting.
If you don't know, they actually do Nintendo Direct things almost once every 2 months. And sometimes they have more information than others.
I think they do it once a quarter.
Is it a quarter?
I think it's once a quarter is what I was reading.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. The thing about it is you can usually find E3 stuff. Somebody the other day, I think it was Jim Sterling, said you can actually cover E3 better from home than you can being at E3, and I completely agree with that because
I've heard that said about like the Electronic Entertainer or the Electronic Expo, the one that happens in January too. Right, they say it's the same way.
C2 E3 or C2 E2 or whatever it's called.
Yeah, whatever.
But no, I agree.
CES, Consumer Electronics Show. That's what I'm thinking of.
CES, yeah. But this is something that Nintendo does a really good job of streaming it, and they do theirs, even though it's still not a keynote, they do it like a very cool kind of show. They do a good job with it. But first up is the Super Smash Brothers for the 3DS, which is coming out first for some reason over the Wii U. Do you know why the 3DS version of this is coming out before the Wii U version?
So they're technically two different games. Like, they're both Smash Brothers, but this is going to be the first Smash Brothers that's ever been on a handheld.
Yeah.
And they have, I think, the same characters, but I think I know there's different levels and there's different modes and stuff. So I'm guessing it's probably because it's easier and cheaper, so it's to get people hyped for when the big one comes out. And I don't think there's online play on the 3DS one either.
I don't know, and I don't get it, because my thought was you're having all your money problems right now, not with your 3DS handheld, but with your Wii U. And
but that makes more sense of why you want it to come out and be perfect rather than.
Well, if the answer to this is they're taking their time to perfect it, sure, I'm all about studios taking their time. I
think they're also aiming to release it closer to the holidays.
That might be true, and I will say this:
around November or October.
If you're like me and you're a Smash Brothers fan, the biggest news for this is that you will be able to go to Best Buy, and they will have Smash Brothers for the Wii U set up where you can demo it
during E3.
Yeah, and if you're at E3, you'll also get to demo it supposedly. So, but I think that is amazing. I think. I can't think of a Smash Bros. Game I haven't liked, so I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good. I expect we'll get a hard date on it at E3. We'll probably see a lot more. I think all the there might still be one or two characters they need to announce. They may announce them, but I think we'll get a hard date.
So Kyle is our resident Pokemon expert. Obviously, they've rumored that they're remastering some of the older Pokemon games. However,
that's actually confirmed. They're redoing Ruby and Sapphire for the 3DS.
And so the big rumor now is that there's also going to be a new Pokemon project.
Yes.
Any thoughts on this?
Well, they did talk about this Pokemon puzzle game. I want to say Pokemon Troze or something like that. They've announced on a past Nintendo Direct.
Right.
I hope that's not what this is, because that doesn't really interest me, because it's just a puzzle game with Pokemon characters' faces. I would love if it was like a Pokemon Stadium on Wii U. That would just be amazing.
Yeah.
You've
talked about that game before. You've never talked about the game like that.
Pokemon Stadium is basically what Pokemon should be. It's not about going around and like collecting them and like raising them. It's about battling them and beating the crap out of each other with them. It's really fun. On the N64, it was great.
Okay. All right. So next is Sonic Boom, and I had to look this up because I knew that Sonic Boom was a cartoon. It's going to be airing on Adult Swim or Cartoon Network. I'm not sure if it's Adult Swim. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like little 15-minute episodes of CGI Sonic. This is the one that everybody was talking about, where they showed off the picture of the different characters. And Nails looks like he's been hitting the roids a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there are two companion games coming out. One supposedly for a handheld and one for a Wii U. And the Sonic Boom, I'm not even sure if it's a fighting game or a beat 'em up brawler. I have no clue. But
me neither, actually.
The pictures that they show don't give you much of a hint towards it, but it looks neat. It honestly, it seems like a lot of people are kind of hyped up for this.
It could be another like adventure game,
because they've announced that this is not the regular Sonic universe. This is apparently an alternate Sonic universe.
Oh my god! Maybe it's like Mario RPG but Sonic RPG.
That would be amazing.
That would be pretty good.
That.
I don't see it being a beat 'em up because that goes into another game they're doing, which is Hyrule Warriors, which is basically Dynasty Warriors with Zelda or Legend of Zelda,
which I'm totally behind. I'm hoping. Do you think we'll get more gameplay footage? I think we'll get more gameplay footage.
I think we'll get a lot more gameplay footage on that one.
Yeah.
It will probably be playable at E3 if I had to guess.
Right. Even more than that, though, there has been a rumor of a new Zelda, even past Hyrule Warriors and all that, game tease.
Yes.
I don't know how true that is. I would love it. That would be cool. It would probably help their stocks go up a little bit if they promised us a new Zelda.
There's been discussion of, like, they re-released Ocarina of... So what they've done in the last with Zelda is that they did Wind Waker HD for the Wii U, and then they re-released Ocarina of Time on the 3DS. So people are saying that it's probably about time that they actually have a new Zelda game discussed that's not a re-release. But they're also saying that they expect them to re-release Majora's Mask shortly, probably for 3DS.
Well, they also just recently did A Link Between Two Worlds, which was a sequel to A Link to the Past. So
yes,
I'm thinking,
but they're thinking it's a Wii U game.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is I'm thinking a brand new Zelda game, like not connected to something else.
Yeah, I agree.
Would be great. Over that, I'm not going to hold my breath, but I have my fingers crossed. There's a Star Fox rumor. There's a rumor that Star Fox may be getting a new game, and the only two good Star Fox games were the first two on the Super Nintendo and the N64. Where the N64 one was amazing, and then they did that really weird one where it was like an RPG that just wasn't good. So I want a good Star Fox game.
Well, yeah, and they just released not just, but in the last couple of years, they've re-released the Star Fox 64 on 3DS. So I could see that's probably, and with Smash Brothers, there are Star Fox characters in it. I could see it's probably about time for there to be a Star Fox, and
it is.
They've been building up to it because there wasn't one on the Wii. Yeah. I think there was one on GameCube, but I don't think there was one on the Wii.
No, you're right. It was on the GameCube.
It's probably one of their bigger franchises that hasn't had anything done with it for a while. It's about time they do something.
It dropped off for a little while. Anyway, so the rumor that I almost hesitated to put on this list, but I read it in like 4 different places, is that there's a rumor that Nintendo will be unveiling a new console. And here's
completely ridiculous. That's not even such a rumor. Is that something an idiot said when he was drunk? I don't care who it was. He's an idiot. Well, why would they release a new console? This one hasn't even been out for 3 years.
I know, and here's okay. This is my thought. Well, that's my thought. Hear me out. Not too long ago, there was a rumor, and it was even less rumored than this, that they were going to release a bundle that was the Wii U and a 3DS, and that they were going to start doing games that were interchangeable. Okay. My theory is that rumor got turned into this rumor somehow. I'm not sure how, like, it's a weird game of telephone or something, or like you said, somebody was drunk in a bar that works for Nintendo.
I think that there's nothing you're going to see about that. I don't think you're going to get a price drop. Probably not going to get anything announced. The next time you get something announced like that's probably closer to the holidays. Probably at their end of the year Nintendo Direct.
But that's my thing. I really think by Christmas, if they may not announce it at E3, I really predict that by Christmas there will be a Wii U bundle that comes with a 3DS or is somehow tied to the 3DS.
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. Now, all right, because we're running short on time, I'm going to shoot through these next ones, and I just want you to tell me what your thoughts are, okay?
Okay.
So we're going to hit Ubisoft first.
All right.
Okay. Assassin's Creed Unity. In another game. Great. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm more interested in the other game because you're going to play as a Templar, but Unity looks like it's going to take place during the French Revolution, which sounds awesome. And I love most of the Assassin's Creed games. All
right, so now Ubisoft also just announced that they want to actually make more Assassin's Creed games. So rather than every other year, they want it to be every year now. Did you see that?
I'm going to drop my head, and I'm going to mumble about Call of Duty, and I'm going to cry.
Yeah. So they want more. So you may get both, and they'll probably both be garbage because they'll be pumping them out like.
That sucks because I really enjoyed that series up until that. But anyway,
all right,
we'll see.
Far Cry 4.
I just started playing Far Cry 3, and I love it, so I'm a little bit excited for Far Cry 4. I need to play Blood Dragon.
What are we going to see? Are we going to see anything? Just a poster? Hear something about it?
Probably. They had a very early cutscene for Far Cry 3 that showed off Voss and all that. So I'm thinking we're going to get a very early cutscene for Far Cry 4.
I think we'll see the exact same cutscene we've already seen before. Maybe a little bit of talk about it. That's it. Yeah. Nothing else. All right. And because they haven't, there was one already last year, but there hasn't been any talk about it. But Splinter Cell game, new one announced or nothing about it?
I'm thinking new tease. I'm thinking tease for a new Splinter Cell game because the last one did really well. The people seem to like it, even though most people's complaints were that they didn't have the original voice for Sam Fisher. Most people seem to like the game, so I think they're going to capitalize on that.
All right, I'll agree with that. I think we'll get a teaser, but probably nothing else. Yeah. And now to the company that everybody hates in gaming, EA. Yeah. All right, Star Wars Battlefront 3. Will we see a new one? Will we finally see the sequel to Star Wars Battlefront 2 that we've been waiting for like 10 years now almost?
I don't know. They were working on it, but then Disney went and did this whole thing where they're like, well, we're canceling all of the Star Wars games, but most things, everything I've read seems to point that a Star Wars game will get time at their press conference. Okay, so
I could see that.
I think it's still going to be Battlefront in some form.
This is the one the internet wants.
Yeah.
The internet has been begging for this game. Like, if you go on Reddit Gaming, there's always discussions about how we need a Battlefront 3. So
Battlefront 2 was great. I didn't play a lot of the first one, but the second one was a lot of fun.
It was good, and the second one was
I don't even like Star Wars that much. I mean, it's a fine, don't get me wrong, but that was a great game.
Yep. All right. A new Sims?
I'm sure somebody cares. It's not me, but people love The Sims.
It's about time for it. They've milked the last one as much as they can with all the extra DLC garbage.
I never realized how many expansions a Sims game gets until Sims 3.
Some of them aren't even expansions. Some of them are just like new underwear.
Yeah. Okay.
$20 for 400 new pairs of underwear.
I'll put it this way. I would never buy it. That's just me. But I know people who are already like frothing at the mouth for Sims 4.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get some gameplay because... It's just,
I don't know. I don't know if they're at that point yet. I think
really?
I think it's not so much with the Sims, it's so much the Sim name in general. I think there's such a huge backlash from Sim City that they may hold off on mentioning anything Sim related for another year.
I'm not disagreeing with that. You could be correct, but I don't know. I think they know that's a big money maker for them.
We'll see. Yeah. All right, new Mass Effect. I thought they were done with Mass Effect.
No, they're working on a new game. They've been talking about it for a little while now. I think we're going to get a teaser trailer.
Maybe.
Yeah, they've been talking about it because it doesn't take place with Shepard, the guy from the original 3, but it's in the same universe. I think they actually announced how many years had passed or when the date when it was taking place, but I am not interested enough that I paid a lot of attention to it. However, a lot of people will be jumping up out of their seats for this one if they.
That will be the one where the audience cheers.
Yeah.
All right, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah, I'm thinking gameplay footage.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's like this year, isn't it? Or early next year.
There was some big debacles they had with it as far as like the engine and all that. But I don't know. I only played the first Dragon Age. And I thought it was fine. I just couldn't get into it as much.
Okay. Yeah, the same with me. I played the first one. I enjoyed it. But I didn't bother with the second one. I didn't hear much about it.
Yeah.
And finally, Mirror's Edge 2 maybe?
Did you play Mirror's Edge?
No, it would have made me nauseous. I didn't play it.
Okay, it's one of those fun hard games, but I stress the hard part of it because it can be a very frustrating game. If they tweak the system, maybe put a little bit more combat in it, because Mirror's Edge 1 is very limited combat. You don't have a lot of combat. I think this could be a good game. I think we'll probably see some gameplay because they've been working on it for a while. Though this is one of those projects that they kept pushing back, so maybe it got pushed back so much there isn't gameplay. I don't know. I would like to see some actual gameplay for it, though.
Yeah, I could see them discussing it. Maybe some trailer or a little bit of footage about it, but I'm not sure how much more than that we would get. All right, so I think that's all of our kind of E3 bullet list of things we wanted to talk about beforehand, like things we think or expect may come up from it. Yeah. You know, and of course, there's always the things you expect, like Sony and Microsoft's keynotes to be completely boring and terrible. That's what I expect.
Next week or next time we do podcast, we'll know if we were right.
We will. So, and unfortunately, none of us are going to go to E3. But just to rub it in Steven's face, I will be going to PAX Prime this year. God. So, just got my ticket today.
That was mean.
I know, but I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Comics Controllers. We went a little long, but we had a lot to talk about. So if you want to email us any questions like Ulysses did, you can send them to comicsandcontrollers@gmail.com. If If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at ZombieJesus here. Where can they follow you, Steven?
On Twitter as well, at Stephen Wilds.
All right, so there you go. So until next time, I'm Kyle.
I'm Steven.
You guys have a good one.